everybody, and I think I've clicked the wrong camera. Here I am. It's Doc Foreman, SPSM. We're doing another live stream today. I am pretty excited about what we're going to get to talk about this week. But first, I'm just going to take a minute to introduce all the folks that are here with us. First of all, I want to do a big shout-out thank you to at Fought for Hope and at Twirl and Swirl, who are going to be assisting with live tweeting. I'm at Doc Foreman. I'm going to be tweeting occasionally, and I'm going to check in with the feed. Assisting us in production is at ADWWW. If there is something all of my folks at hashtag SPSM want to communicate, oops, Tony, we're ready. Come back on. He disappeared, and then he went off. I want you to get, he did it again. You're naughty, Tony. Get with Tony Wood. Every time I click on him and he goes off, get with Tony Wood, send the questions up front or send the commentary. He's going to help us with monitoring our channel. We have with us again, everybody say hi to at Dr. Bart Andrews, or you're at Bart Andrews, right?
Yeah, at Bart Andrews.
At Bart Andrews, the man of many pocket squares.
Red tonight.
Red tonight.
Matches the old school.
Cool. We should match up nail polish and pocket squares. I really feel like we need to do this.
What color are the nails?
The nails are purple this week.
Yeah, it's not working.
No, he said no. Okay.
If you look at the color wheel, that's not, if we did the color wheel, it's not.
Not even close.
Not even close.
No.
And we have two folks with us today who are going to be taking a minute in the next couple minutes to introduce themselves. First of all, I want to introduce you to somebody that I've sort of sought out, I don't want to say on a whim, because that's not really how I behave, but because someone sent me an article and said, this sounds cool. Everybody say hello to Howard Rosen.
Hey, y'all.
Howard, can you tell them what your Twitter handle is and who you are?
The Twitter handle is at LifeWire Connect. So LIFEWIRE Connect, CONNECT. I think is how I spell it.
Uh-huh.
I'm the CEO and founder of LifeWire, which is a communication engine. And I can give my background afterwards or now, but essentially let's
talk about how we met.
We met actually through the head of the chief of PTSD program at Lovell, at James Lovell facility. Because we've been working with Tony, Dr. Anthony Peterson, for about 2-3 years now with his unit in post-traumatic stress, but as well substance abuse and high-risk suicide.
Basically what happens, folks, is I get all sorts of wonderful things because of social media, because of you all, and because of these projects, and because people know about my interest in technology and in suicide prevention. They send me some information about this project, and they said, you should find these people, you should meet these people somehow, and they hook me up with Howard Rosen. They say, Howard, you're the guy that you know something about technology and suicide prevention, and how long have you been sort of working at this intersection?
Well, the intersection, the idea for LifeWire is about 10 years now. In terms of the intersection, I'd say it's about 6 years now that I've been at that intersection and working quite a deep dive in that area.
And really, Howard, in fact, you've been doing it long enough and that I think most people didn't even know that intersection existed, and you were sort of already there with projects, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And so you also have known our next guest for a little bit longer than that. Do I understand that correctly?
Well, our next guest actually hired our company to do the first work in this area 6 years ago. And he was too complimentary about it, so I said, well, if you're such a smartass about it, why don't you work for me? Let's continue doing this work.
You've just delighted Bart Andrews.
Yeah, I'm tweeting that.
and
that's Dr. Bill Harms.
Here he is.
Our Director of Research at LifeWire.
How are you all doing?
So tell us the story of how from your point of view, how you and Howard ended up working at this really neat sort of crossroads.
There was this guy collecting quarters on the street asking if he could wash the windshield of my car. No, actually. We were doing a research project. I was working with an institute out of D.C. called the Altarum Institute, who has a lot of self-funded research in the PTSD area. And we were fascinated with the effectiveness of our current ability to assess people with short-term memory loss. And so we needed some way to be able to collect data over a period of time that we could then use to ask assessment questions, average those answers, and come out with literally an effective ecological momentary assessment. And so Howard is the fellow that we hired, and he has been incredible. I think that we're on our 4,000 or 5,000th change in LiveWire upgrade, creating it, tuning it to make it very finely tuned to work in this space.
And what Bill said in terms of 4,000's change is because what we do is we build insights on an ongoing basis from our clients, and in the case with the VA with our vets, and make changes on a regular basis. So as Bill said, the 4,000th, we're pretty darn close, if not surpassed it, is from the original platform, from the original work with the vets at the Pathway Home 6 years ago. We've made probably 4,000, there are 4,000 insights from the clinicians, from the vets, from everybody, from the buddies, from everybody involved that we've incorporated to building this to be interactive and valuable, and provide the insight for the vet, but also for the clinicians as well.
So what we have here, folks, is we have actually for many years a partnership that has been working at the intersection of technology and suicide prevention. And in some ways, you know, we do have wonderful research going on, but this isn't something that I think the suicide prevention community is necessarily hearing a lot about. So, Bart, did you know about these folks and what was being studied before we brought them into the SPSM community?
So I wasn't specifically familiar with these two gentlemen. I wish I would have, because what they're doing is amazing. We've actually been involved with some projects at Behavioral Health Response and worked with folks behind the scenes. Ginger IO is a group that we had some contact with, is doing similar things. And some of the providers we're working with are starting to use apps to engage the folks that they're working with. And there's some good research coming out that supports this. It works. People more and more, their smartphones are an extension of themselves, right? We're merging our lives with a digital medium, and this is where people are. So I think one of the things that we're seeing is that we're finding out where people are and meeting them where they are, and that's so. If we're going to make a dent in our lack of treatment for mental health and suicide, we've got to go where people are. We keep trying to get people to come to us, and what we're doing here is we're going to where they are, where they live, and that's the power of this, and that's why I think this is awesome.
And Bart, that's a great point. And talking about where they are, as we've talked about previously in terms of our chats, what we do is not only talk to where they are in terms of, okay, you're not in the facility, we're going to talk to you where you are, but talk to you are in terms of the technology that you use and the means of communication. So if you want to communicate with email, it's email. If you want to be IVR, it's IVR. If you want to be text, it's text. And just open that up completely. Don't tell people how you're going to communicate. Let them tell you how to communicate. And then you've taken that huge barrier away.
What was so critically important, too, was when we have patients who are in treatment and in some type of crisis, we certainly don't want to say, okay, we want you to take a bunch of time and we're going to train you how to do an app and we're going to download this app. Oh, I'm sorry, it's going to take 2 hours and 10 minutes. They won't use it. So it has to be something that's native, something that they use, something that their support system uses, something that everybody knows how to get back and forth on, and that when we do an upgrade, it happens immediately. So we can respond to somebody that says, I can't see all the characters on my screen. Done, fixed for 10,000 users across the U.S. immediately.
Wow. So I'm going to back us up just a little bit before we really start to get in the meat of how you go about using this technology and how you do this design. One of the things, you know, we did put out some information a little bit about what LifeWire is, but I would love it if you would explain a little bit to the SPSM community about what the system is and sort of how it works. We've talked with other folks, and just sort of if you can give them the broad overview. Before we do that, want to shout out to folks like Noreen, who's there, Des Stage, who's saying hi, Dr. Bill Schmitz, president of the American Association of Suicidology. You guys are, by the way, going to want to meet, probably offline in person or by phone, Matthew Loxton, who says, hey, we're going to say hey to Noreen. We've got tons of really great folks who are tweeting in, and they're really excited, and they would like for you to explain how Lifeline works.
So LifeWire, it's over.
LifeWire, sorry. That's
okay. Well, we won't let you get away with that again. You lose the pirate hat. LifeWire very quickly is a communication engine, so it's cloud-based, so allows the provider, the social worker, to be in contact with their patient, or the vet in this particular case, in real time. It's an interactive process. That said, you can send out a variety of messages. So it'll be motivation. So it said, don't forget to hug your kids today, or go do the back 9. The key thing is the personalization for the individual. It's important to them. That's what's important to the clinician, to drive that. But it's interactive as well, so it's not just telling them something, it's asking something, it's involving them. So a lot of work we do in PTSD, for example, is just, how do you feel today? And it's a 5-point scale, 1 great, 5 lousy. Depending how they respond, the system automatically responds back to them. So for example, if it's 1, 2, or 3, they're doing not bad, it'll give like, that's great, keep up the good work, don't forget we're available 24/7. And there's an embedded phone number for them to call. If they respond to 4 or 5 saying they're feeling lousy, it'll say, okay, sorry, you feel that way, why don't you go make yourself a cup of tea, click on this information if you want more information. It sends them right to a website or right for information to help them. Plus it's got the embedded phone number to call the provider. At the same time, it'll send a message to the provider, to the social worker, loved one, buddy, member of their unit, to say, Howard's feeling lousy right now. So their community of care knows what's going on. Not even as an alert, just as a heads up of what's going on. And that allows...
The other thing that's so critical about that, though, from a treatment perspective, is I have a lot of clients that I want to have high touch. I have a lot of patients that I really want to be there for. And
Explain what high touch means.
I would love to have 1,000 patients that I'm working with, and that's probably not an exaggeration using our LifeWire case management load, that we're sitting across from my desk on a nice casual Sunday afternoon, so I can say, what's up, everything going okay, how's your kid, how's your dog? I can do that with LifeWire. From a single point, can go out and work with 1,000 people as easily as I can work with 3. The thing that makes it so incredible for me is I can work at the top of my license, because LifeWire then filters out everybody who is doing okay. And it gives me the list of the 3 or 4 or 10 people who are in crisis, who I can then jump on live chat and say, what's up? I understand you got you're a 9 on your pain scale. I see you're tripping out on your anxiety. How to work with you? And so I'm not filtering the other 998 who are out there just doing fine and having a great day.
And to that, as Bill said, it's high touch and also light touch. It's the high touch for the individuals receiving the communication. It's light touch for the care coordinators, who this is designed to work within their workflows and actually make them easier, not harder. So in fact, the way it's designed for population management, you can manage 10,000 lives more easily than actually one individual, yet it's all personalized and customized for each individual's needs and responsive to that.
So tell us a little bit about how this gets designed or how this gets set up. So, I mean, what you're telling me is that you're saying, like magic, the technology allows us to sort of, in an idiosyncratic way, set up messages for each person that we're working with, sort of at the beginning of our treatment, about how their network's going to be, what messages they're going to receive, right? Am I really setting up that many sort of idiosyncratic ways of interacting that then sort of filter to me? Is that really happening?
You can if you want, absolutely. And as we talk about the science and the art of communication. The science is the technology that can do that. The art is how you do that, how you're communicating with the individuals, and in the specific way you're communicating, which language are you using. So we do a lot of work in terms of, with the clinical side, is to sit down with the clinicians and tie into their workflows. Okay, what are you doing, how are you communicating, and mobilizing existing protocols. We're not changing those rules, we're saying, okay, how are you communicating with them, and helping them to make that more mobile and more of a high touch for that. And then what we do is we work with them, and then we create focus groups, because a group out of the Northwest is very different from the Southeast. And so we want to make sure there's focus groups, they test the messaging, to check the nuances, to make sure it works on a general basis with the peer group themselves. Because a vet could recognize a message from a vet versus a communication from somebody else.
But I make it really simple here. The way it actually happens when we walk in the door the first day is we say, hey, Dr. Foreman, how are you doing?
Hey!
What's your group and what do you work with? Well, I work with ABC. Great. What do you use for an assessment? Oh, I use such and such. Great. We're going to put that in as a survey right within LifeWire. And so,
let's do this. Can we do, Bill, can you and I do this right now? Can we like role play this just a little bit?
Let's go.
All right, so ask, like, say great, like, say hey to me.
Okay, fantastic. So, oh, by the way, you just happened to use the Edinburgh Depression Scale. Fantastic.
Oh, actually, I work with folks who have borderline personality disorders, and I have them keep a diary card where they're rating a couple of things every day on a scale of 1 to 5. And
Fantastic.
I'm really interested in how angry or frustrated they feel, and I'm really interested in how strong their urge is to suicide every single day.
So could I build you a multiple choice question with each of those 5 answers?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to personalize that. So you, when you tell me your people, I'm going to put in their names. So the message that will go out, instead of saying hi generic, it's going to say, hey, April, this is Bill. I'm calling for such and such. I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions. Do you have time right now? And if they say no, it reschedules 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later. Or if they say yes, then it actually gives them the first text message. Hey, I understand that you're having a little bit of anxiety. Would you give me, on a scale of 1 to 5, what is that? And you can use natural language. And so they go through, they answer the first question, go to the next, go to the next. Sometimes they don't answer. And that's as important to us as an answer. Because we say, okay, I'm talking to Bobby Sue, and she's dogging me. And when she's dogging me and she's in a crisis, I want the system to tell me immediately, I'm going to give her a call. And so we know immediately when something goes off the reservation.
So then I could say, hey, you and I agreed we're going to use this LifeWire to do your diary card. I'm going to switch camera here. You and I agreed we're going to try LifeWire to do your diary card, and ask if you were feeling suicidal or how suicidal you were feeling, and then you just quit answering. So it told me to give you a call, Susie, and I'm just using that name randomly. Susie, I'm really worried about you. How are you right now?
That's exactly a great example of what can happen. In fact, a great example of a very good example of what happened recently with a vet was exactly that. It was high-risk suicide, and it went dark. Like, he didn't respond to a message, which was on a Sunday, and he was set to an immediate knowledge of that. And they actually, clinician tried to track him down for 5 days, completely dark, and everyone was trying to find him, couldn't find him. On the Thursday, he calls up and say, "Hey, how you doing?" He said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "Well, I was having a really tough time, but I was getting the messages. I was getting the motivation messages I asked, and actually I read them every day. And then I got the message today saying, well, don't forget we're here. Please call us and click on this number." And he sort of saw the number was there, and it was just so easy. I clicked on it, and here I am.
Okay, so you're also, this is a different aspect, which is you're saying, and which is true. And I think, as a clinician who loves to serve folks with intense pain, it can be really hard for them to initiate contact with their treatment team or their support network. You've got to remove a lot of barriers because they're depressed, they feel ashamed, they may be using, they may not want to have to tell you how bad things have gone because then they know you're going to initiate a plan that's going to be a lot of effort or going to be hard. And so you've got to really lower the bar for them to get back in touch with you.
Exactly. So we make it as easy as possible. Embedded phone numbers, embedded hyperlinks. When we do the original intake, going back to our role play, I would say, okay, what information do you have? And do we have permission to talk to their natural support group? If they don't answer for a couple days, could I also be sending a message to their commander who they're still really tight with even though they're out, so that that commander can call and say, soldier, get with it. You're not answering your calls. Mm-hmm. Or can I go to their spouse and say, we haven't been getting any answers back from Howard for a few hours. Is he okay? So the system can actually automatically do that. And for me as a clinician, I'm still sitting fat, dumb, and happy here in my office dealing with people who are in crisis. and then I'm seeing, okay, so-and-so has some need, I can jump in. So, and I see, Noreen, that you just asked on Twitter, can it be used outside the VA? We are using it in public, we're using it in private, we're using it actually even in corrections, we're using it in EAP, we're using it for people in...
well, it's in readmission issues, dealing post-operative, different kind of chronic diseases, because it's an open platform that allows, again, the clinicians to make whatever interactions they want, deal with any comorbidities they want. We've designed it, as I said, we talk about the science and the art. The science is the technology. The art is allowing you all to do the work you do better than we. You don't need us to program stuff. We make it so you can easily just type from keyboard to screen, pull the sets by just punching on pull-down menus, and in literally seconds you can create the interactions and all the comorbidities that you want.
So, and Bart's, I think, having a little connectivity issue, so he's going to be with us in just a second.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is. He's back. So, Bart, when we were doing the warm-up, and I'm going to have to apologize for getting names confused a bunch because this is just how I am every week. Sometimes the things get, so if I mess it up, you guys can make me lose the hat. So, but Bart, we were talking about the art versus the science of communication. And what Bill was explaining was that, he was using semantic text engines and they were using focus groups and really explaining the process, which I'm hoping that we'll get to Bill to do. And to Howard to talk a little bit about how they actually technically perform this. But you were saying there's sort of an art to communication, or that their process for how they would design the system was really fitting a new movement or a paradigm shift in how we were doing this kind of care. And I was wondering if you could speak to that again.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that really play in here, and one of the things that Howard and Bill are really hitting on is that, the original meaning of the word assessment, and I think a lot of you folks may know this, but the original meaning of the word assessment was to sit beside, right? And one of the things that I'm seeing here is that we're finding a way to connect with people and learn about them in a way that we're sitting beside them and with them and not poking and prodding them, right? And that really gets at that concept of self-agency and collaboration. I think for a lot of psychologists, a lot of mental professionals, assessment turned into this thing that we make you do. You give us we push this to you. You give us these answers, and it's very impersonal and not often very informative. And what we're doing here is we're emphasizing self-agency. We're emphasizing, let's find out from the folks that we're working with what works for them. Where would they like to have this done? What kind of things would be helpful to ask about? How would you like to be asked this question or engaged around this? And that really gets at a lot of the concepts of motivational interviewing, right? So we're merging, and I think that's one of the things that we're starting to see is that technology is allowing us to start creating digital connections and build on many of the things that we know work empirically as well. And I think that that's just so cool.
So, as we're talking about the art versus the science, if I can get either Howard or Bill to sort of weigh in on the science that they use to really achieve these lofty philosophical or artistic goals of communication.
Well, it comes back from, because my background, this is my midlife career crisis. My background is not in healthcare. Like most, previous to healthcare, I spent 25 years producing film and television. So I come from, my whole world is communication engagement. And so we took a look at this, not a technology-driven piece. It was really just looking at it from what is needed for behavioral management and for engagement to drive the best values, and then develop the technologies required to do it. And that's why Bill talked about the insights. We use those insights our system is designed to be fed by insight, and that insight helps drive the system.
And one of the amazing things that Howard did as he developed this engine is this isn't something that you have to fill in the blanks and do a multiple choice question. It simply is an operating system that allows each person to customize it. So as we just did, April, when we did role playing, we can go in and say, are you enjoying your job? Are you getting enough fulfillment? Do you have any stress in your job? Are you having a problem with your managers? We can actually go with people who just got out of prison and say, hey, we understand that you don't like going and seeing the parole officer, so what about if you answer these and you stay current, and then you only have to go see your parole officer once a month instead of once a week. So can we actually track you, or are you doing your meds? So literally, it's an open platform that you just put in a question, can be a single motivation, and you can run those all simultaneously based on pre-made schedules. So we say we can do 1,000 people as easily as we can do one. So if you have 1,000 clients and they all need an assessment, and you happen to be able to give us their first name and something, a cordial greeting and their cell phone number, and that they need, well, you don't know what they need. So what if you had your first questionnaire, as for lack of better words, that said, hey, do you need help with your meds? Do you need help with your finances? Do you need help with your such and such? And based on their answer, then it jumped into another questionnaire that said, oh, help with your finances, not a problem. We have this resource. Why don't we go over here? Do you need anything tonight? Do you have a home to stay in? We're going to jump over to the SSVS and the HUD-VASH, and we're going to make sure that the homeless people are talking to you.
And for those of you who don't work in VA, that's VA speak. Like those are some VA acronyms, but when we do really coordinated care in VA, we have multiple services. So one of the great things about me getting to do suicide prevention with VA and working with veterans is that when they have triggers that really increase their desire to die and make their sort of stress and suicidality worse, if it really is finances, or if it really is housing, or if it really is their chronic medical condition, I can really get them resources in each of those things. So if whoever you are working with, if you were using alternatives or like alternate services or coordinated care, this tool would still work. I mean, that's what you're telling us, right, Bill?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I could make the assessment as complex or simple as I wanted.
It can be one question. It can be it could be just a motivation.
I mean, this is about, like, the technology is really plastic based on the clinical tasks that I'm really trying to do.
Absolutely. So also, if you wanted to send motivation messages along with these questionnaires, so you're doing an assessment, you're going to do an assessment on Tuesday and Thursday, maybe on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you want to do a med reminder, but you notice that somebody doesn't show up. One of your clients doesn't answer well at about 4 in the afternoon. So you say, what's your hunting dog's name? Because he's talked about it a lot when you're in clinic. So you type him a very customized thing that says, hey, how's Bo doing? You've been hunting lately. And so we can mix assessments and motivations and interactions or triggers, particularly in this. We know that there are some triggers, so why not once or twice a day at random times kick out some of those triggers and be able to track them.
And Bill said those motivation messages have been incredibly powerful. Like, and I was surprised the extent that a motivation message, which can be, hoorah, it can be hug your kids, who go from, or it can be biblical quotations. Is dramatically powerful for the individuals to just add that reaffirmation. And a reaffirmation is something that's important to them. It's not just generic, have a nice day. It's very specific to their needs.
And before we go too far down that rabbit hole, we're going to take just a quick pause. This is going right to the next talking point. You guys are doing great. The issue is, you should just know, and maybe I'm going to talk for just a minute, and I'm hoping that Tony and Howard and Bill, if you can go to the feed. You've got a lot of questions to answer. The feed's a little hot. People are asking, like, what if my phone's on silent? Will I lose this? Twirl and Swirl's pointing out a wonderful user experience. She goes, there were times when I feel so bad and I just wanted somebody to know, but it was really too hard for me to initiate telling them. And so a tool like this makes sure that someone's automatically always asking.
Absolutely.
Which I think is amazing.
There were a couple of questions out there, April, that are kind of bouncing around. One is, apparently, can this app link with other apps like the VA's utilization management system? That was one question that was bouncing around for a bit. Apparently, the VA's using this utilization management system. That was one. Would that be a good thing? Look at April's making faces. So
I can't speak to those things because I'm not authorized in this particular venue to speak on behalf of VA. What I'm going to say is, generally speaking, the technology can do what you want it to do if people say yes, they want it, and they pay for it.
But to the general question, will not get April in trouble, is the system is designed to talk to virtually any third-party system and interact in the way that is most effective for the respective system. How's that?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. And another question that was floating around, I think Twirl and Swirl was really getting at this. So if somebody isn't responding, and they haven't been responding for a while, maybe they go to a movie, they turn their phone off, right? How long? So this idea that I think that some folks don't want to be targeted or feel like that because they're out of the loop for half a day that all of a sudden they're going to get bombarded with stuff. So how do we respect privacy and not be overly intrusive while we're doing this very, very detailed monitoring engagement? I think that's that balance between care, attention, and being overly intrusive or kind of creating a nanny type feel.
In
Absolutely.
many regards, the patients are involved in helping to choose the variety and the extent to which you have the interactions in the first place. So it won't be more intrusive than they've already asked for. Like, for an example, the range of interactions we have with the veteran population goes from, I'd say, 4 messages a week to 40 messages a day. Like, it really depends on the deep dive, and because the individual's controlling that, the empowerment of them, they can say what more, what less, whatever the case may be. That drives it, so it's not intrusive at all. It's their request.
So back to our question.
And I'm going to say my experience has been consistently when I'm working with folks is that they get better when I say, how much do you think you actually want to be seen? How much do you think you need to be seen? What do you because when they usually tell me, and when and very rarely I might have a reason to say, I think there's some evidence that maybe that's not quite right, but almost always when people tell you sort of what they think they need, it's often pretty close.
Absolutely. Well,
but guess what it's time for? We're already halfway through.
Oh, is it time for April to call the airline to double check her reservations for a trip tomorrow?
Bart, they didn't see that.
It is time.
Oh, it's time for intermission, everybody. April has a personal need.
It is the bowl of interesting questions, and it's saying hello. And we'll see what our first question is tonight for our guests. And the question tonight is, Beatles or Elvis? Dun, dun, dun.
That's easy.
Oh, I like it. What is it?
You would have the Beatles without Elvis.
You think?
Oh, sure, because he inspired Buddy Holly, all that group, and they're the ones that inspired the Beatles.
So you're gonna really frame this like a chicken or egg thing. I
Absolutely.
like it. So how about for the rest of our panel?
A little non-committal.
What about you, Mr. Wood?
Elvis. You kidding?
Really?
Yes.
Elvis.
Sun Records Elvis. I mean, later Elvis, you know.
No Sun Records and Leather-Clad Elvis, the second CBS special. But other than that.
Well, as the only senior on the panel, I have to go with Elvis because anybody that can move that many body parts that way without having something fall off is my hero.
How about you, Dr. Bart Andrews?
And don't feel
yeah, I'm just, wow. Elvis is great. I take more of the NWA attitude towards Elvis. So if you've listened to the I'm not sure that these guys are listening to a lot of NWA. I'm guessing they're not. They're not. So I love the Beatles. I think Elvis was great. I love Elvis, but I think the Beatles created pop music. And one of the things the Beatles did that Elvis really didn't do a lot of until after the Beatles, interestingly enough, was using music and art as a social commentary. And so I think that Elvis was first an entertainer and was part of the system, and the Beatles really came along, and they not only did art, but there was a political message and a cultural change that went along with the Beatles that I think was very powerful. And I think we wouldn't have Elvis in the ghetto if the Beatles hadn't been there first.
And what about the ostracizing song "Blue Suede Shoes"? That was pretty brave.
Very brave.
You guys are smart people. I'm just going to say Beatles. Got Beatles one CD. I don't have an Elvis one CD. That's it. I'm going to sing the Beatles because I'm going to sing the Beatles.
That's okay. You don't want to hold it against you.
I know. It's just it's groovier. That's it. That's all I have.
Beatles
for us to feel superior. Fine.
Beatles. See, Crystal, you're my pal. I want to say to James Saylor, just want to do a shout out to you, Sanford James Saylor. You've been mentioned at a bunch of chats you have not been at, and we have questions and commentary that were just for you, and I wanted to let you know you were missed. We have Julie Ann Malo, and she is really tweeting up a storm right now, so if you can sort of check in some of, she sounds like someone to give you some user information. Say hi to Sean at Stuck on Social Work. This is a really hot feed tonight. Hey, Ursula.
So from a healthcare IT perspective, Howard and/or Bill, what's the integration like for the agency that chooses to do this? So I'm excited about doing this. What is it going to take to integrate it with my system?
The integration is fairly straightforward in terms of we designed it specifically to have a very light API requirement between the systems. So it really is. We haven't met a system we haven't liked in terms of that side of it.
Secure relationship. Obviously, we got a lot of PHI, a lot of secrets to keep.
And
how do you guys manage the security?
Our system, first and foremost, aside from the technical side of it, is we don't have any PHI in our system. All the IDs are all de-identified, client provided. So on our system, you have no idea of the socioeconomic demographics of the individual whatsoever. There's a message, and that's it. And in terms of the database itself, it's double encrypted to the point where the phone number, which is if it's a cell phone number, it's at resting point is encrypted. If somehow someone would break into the database to get that phone number, there's no correlation between the phone number and the data. That's a separate encryption that we had. Actually, DoD wanted, and we said, I don't think so.
Classy.
So basically, it's a standalone. It can be linked in through API for a totally simultaneous interactive communication with any software that you choose to have, as long as your programmers will let you modify an API or import. We can export just about anything from comma separated into a flat SQL file. Therefore, it can be extracted back through an API with an internal query and go back into individual records. So very, very easy to work both ends. However, we have found in most implementations that we sort of are the end of a stream. We're at the clinician end of the stream where the clinician says, I just need to know if there's something going on. I need to communicate with my people. I need to be able to dump it back into their record, but I'm not going to go into the record to get it. I just need this to show up on my cell phone. I'm not actually going to go through Assist or whatever is necessary. I need this to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
An earlier question that Bart asked, and we didn't come back to it, what happens if somebody gets a text while they're in the phone or in the movie?
Yes, that was one of the questions. Just
like any other text. It just sits there on your phone until you come out, you answer the first question, you get the second question. You answer that question, you get the next. So it will actually just sit there and wait. We actually have some triggers that users can set that says if I don't answer for 12 hours, it's going to send a reminder. Oh, by the way, you never answered me. Can you do that again? And it will do that. You can set that up to 99 times, or you can say after 3, call April because she needs to know if the person's not answering.
Now, just be clear, in terms of we're using text, and it said we could do any modality, it's just what 98% of the population are asking for.
Right, and the adherence to text is huge, right?
Yeah, and it's when given the option that we give, and they're always given the options, it's like 98% are on text, the only 2%, other 2% are email, and what happens is after you use email for a while, they switch to text. So the email is very fluctuating.
So I'd like to point out that a lot of how you're picking these designs are really based on user data. So we tried this, and that's how it works. So the really, and we're a little bit past that half mark. Talk about how we know that the LifeWire design works. So how did you test this, and how do you know that this is the design that is panning out?
Well, fundamentally, you know it by measuring outcomes. And so very quick to go through a number of them that we have in terms of the specifics. In terms of just simple one, in terms of the 7-day report that vets have to do once they're discharged from a program. In the control group, there were 30% no-shows in the 7-day report. In the LifeWire group, there's 7%. So in terms of
say that again.
There were 30% no-shows in the control group, and 7% in the LifeWire group were no-shows.
So 1 out of 3 not showing, and these are folks that are high risk, correct? Which is pretty scary. And then less than 1 out of 10 when we're staying in contact with them this way. That's a huge difference in outcomes. Okay, go on to the next one.
Similarly, in a similar group, it was in terms of substance abuse relapses, again, was 30% relapse, and LifeWire group was 11% relapse. And the coolest one in terms, just because it's the most dramatic in terms of readmissions, which was a substance abuse and PTSD population. Over a 14-month period now, we had a 28% reduction in readmissions, which for the facility measured at, that was actually a $1.5 million cost savings in quotations, because when they went to the budget line, they found it was fully utilized still, and we went back to realize is the fact that, yes, there's a 28% reduction, and that meant 36 more vets got access to the facility that didn't otherwise have access to that facility.
So I'm going to go through this just to explain. So, I mean, what you were telling me is that with very smart technology design and really, really thinking this through, you come up with a design that solved a bunch of technology and security and clinical problems that users actually prefer and stay connected with, that they tend to be more connected and more adherent with their treatment when they use it. They tend to like it, and they tend to feel closer to their clinician, and they can have a customized interaction, one that fits their frequency, their style, their need, their particular things that they agree with their clinician they want to track and monitor. The same system is scalable for clinicians, so it now allows me to scale up the number of people I can help versus the one person at a time model, which is I can just do who I can do this 5 minutes. I can just talk to this one person this 30 minutes or this 150-minute scheduled hour and hope that they show for it. So now I can actually really sort of survey a caseload in a way I could never have done before. Administrators would probably like it because it would increase bed availability, and we might have fewer folks ending up in the hospital, which most folks don't like very much. And then you're also telling me that there's like a huge cost savings. And some folks were asking, like, how much does it cost to do a system like this?
Well, can I give you one more statistic that will sort of knock your little captain's hat off?
We'll give it a shot.
All right. The initial study that Howard and I worked together with was a study in California. We had 45 in our original cohort. It was a funded study for a year, and so all 45 of those clients were still, or the patients were still in our cohort at the end of that year, which is pretty amazing to keep them in the study. This is what really is amazing. That was 5 years ago. And at the end of the study, the patients themselves were so emphatic that the hospital went out and found a nonprofit to continue to pay for the LifeWire for those guys to stay connected. 5 years down the road, 85% of them are still answering text messages daily.
Right. So let's be clear, folks who talk about adherence all the time. Imagine something that I, as the clinician, don't have to put a lot of intense face-to-face time that has a 5-year, 85% adherence rate. So that you have something to compare it to. The pencil and paper method for charting and logging mood has an 11% adherence rate, and that's just for a few weeks to get a little bit of data. That means that only 1 out of 10 folks, in the traditional way we've asked people to track information about themselves, will adhere for a few weeks. And this is most people for a year, and 85% after multiple years. And be very clear that other folks doing similar kinds of interventions are finding this kind of adherence rate when they get the sauce right, when they get the design right. This is why we advocate so hard for technology adoption and good design in suicide prevention.
And we've talked a little bit about the art of all of this. And the art is that we actually do something really novel. We go back to the patient and say, hey, what works for you? And so patients won't stay in treatment unless they see a benefit in staying in treatment. And so
you mean this is like what you were talking about working, we were talking about prisons, and you said, folks would say, well, we'll do better with prisoners when we get better prisoners?
Yes.
And clinicians have sort of been, and there's sort of been a culture of blaming patients when our system is not well designed and it fails people.
So we went back to those same prisoners, or the prison system in this case, and we said, what if you say to these guys, if I contact you and you answer 3 times a week on text, and if you do that, then you only have to come see me once a month. But if you don't answer, then you have to come in once a week and fill out a paper report. Which would you prefer? So you can definitely utilize some psychology, which would be really interesting.
Just to throw that out there.
That's right. What is in it for the patient? There's a lot in it for the patient. And how do we actually turn this around so it's proactive and positive for them so that they're getting information, they're getting answers, they're getting relationships. There are days in my life that I would answer a 5 on a panic scale just to get my family to call me, and it would work.
And that's an interesting point that Bill made, is we've had lots of discussion with lots of groups, and I'm sure you've heard them all, about incentive programs and paying for this or providing gift cards for that. And fundamentally what happens is, after a while, it becomes white noise. If you give them a $5 card, they're going to want a $10 card, then a $15 card. What we've done is to look at it and say, let's just give them something they may really want, which is information, immediate feedback, outreach to their peer groups when they want to outreach their peer group, which ultimately is more powerful to drive it. And in fact, just one question that came out in terms of, are patients self-selecting and using it? And it's the clinicians are involved in choosing the patients, the vets. Yes, it's self-selecting as do you want to communicate this way or not. But what we find happens on a regular basis is the peer group actually gets those who said no. They actually start using it when they see the results from their peer group. And so they start off self-selecting, but as time goes on, they actually, a great majority of them come on because they're seeing the results from their peers. Like a very dramatic quote, just to throw out, that we had recently when we're asking about the value proposition of LifeWire and talking with vets and the high-risk suicidal group. And in one particular, it was a satisfaction survey. And again, we did a focus group to see what worked and didn't work in terms of questions. And he asked, well, why are you giving this? What are you looking for? Well, so we're trying to get a sense of the value of LifeWire to you, the vets. And he kind of looked at me and he said, value of LifeWire? Well, all I can tell you is after 14 months, I'm here, and some of my buddies who didn't aren't.
And I want to be really clear. I'm enthusiastic about this. There's no exchange of funding or anything like that, and I get nothing from this. It is except for the part where I've seen sort of similar kinds of designs. This is, I think, the design that works and keeps people alive and keeps people connected. And when I say I'll do anything to make the system function better, this is a strategy that could work, that solves a bunch of problems and ultimately results in pain reduction and improved quality of life. Bart, do you have I've seen your face light up a couple times, and I'm wondering if you could say something.
Yeah, well, I mean, a couple of things. One of the things that's really cool about this is, I mean, one of the most seminal and efficacious studies we've had on suicide intervention, and there's not a lot of them out there, guys. There's not a lot of research about this really saves people's lives. The postcard studies, which have been replicated, showed that just simple snail mail follow-up had a huge impact on helping people feel connected and help protect them from suicide. And this LifeWire, this kind of system of keeping people connected with relatively, although complicated technology in terms of simple utilization, simple process that is a form that they like, is a way of people keeping them connected with the world, right? And feeling that somebody's there for them. There's a couple of things that occur to me. One, and since I run a 24-hour call center, the idea of some synergy here that we could link these apps with 24/7 response, because for many clinicians they can't be available 24/7. They can't be at their smartphone at 4 o'clock in the morning when something comes through or some trigger fire. So the ability that we could connect systems and even do that behind the scenes where it was very seamless, right? I think there's a lot of synergy possibly there. The third, I'd love to hear your input on this, but the concept of using gamification principles in these apps, and not the cheesy gift card kind of gamification, but the fact that we're using the joy. Part of human experiences, we enjoy life and that we're engaged and we have fun. And using gamification in these types of apps, and I don't know if you guys have explored that, and sometimes people say fun and mental health, well, that doesn't make any sense, and to me that's a huge problem with the system.
Yes.
When you look at one of the barriers to treatment, particularly among youth will say, therapy is boring. And guess what? It is boring. And I know there's a lot of youth clinicians right there going, that's not true. Guess what, guys? It's true. It's boring. So I don't know if you guys have considered gamification principles or adding those elements in a way that's respectful, obviously, but those are things that are popping around.
Well, the way we've done it, and Bill will jump in on this, the way we've done it to date is what we call our survey adventure, which is creating a series of questions and interactions where they can answer a question and it sends them off in this adventure depending how they respond to different pieces.
So, like, can you give an example? Because I'm not sure what you mean by survey adventure.
Bill, you want to give the example? Like, basically what it is it's using we have a survey function, a polling function on LifeWire. And so what it does is you ask the question, depending how you respond to it, we'll send you to another question. Very simple piece, in logic. But what you do is you amp it up to make it more interesting, so you give them a wider range of responses. Some are more legitimate, more silly, and you can take them off into a whole different area based on how silly their answers are. You're still getting all kinds of insight, but you're realizing it's more fun going on.
You're talking about the use of irreverence. I mean, that's
Yes.
I mean, that's really therapeutically important. Like,
Absolutely. I use some of my background in film to, on occasions, if you want to use humor, hire some comedy writers to help with the clinicians to create the messaging.
Yes, mental health needs comedy writers. I agree with you 100%. I will tell you, and if you do ever get a chance to connect with Carl Dunn Jr., who's also on this chat, he runs the BPD chat for borderline personality disorder, and the use of irreverence and humor, it's really important for helping folks sort of engage with what they're saying.
Something my other hat that I wear when I'm not playing LifeWire is that I teach research design for doctoral students. And so I really get nailed down sometimes on you have to ask the same question the same way in the same monotone on the same phone with the same clothes on in order to come up with a good answer. Not true, because one of the things that we suspect, one of the things we found through some of the data that we're getting is pretty amazing. You can actually take an instrument and then skin it. So if I'm talking to a vet, I can ask the same questions in a different way and get efficacious answers than I would if I was talking to a physician, than I would if I was talking to a politician. Actually, we don't talk to politicians. They talk to us, but that's okay. Or if we... No.
You're very naughty, Bill. Okay,
I am very naughty. I don't work for the government anymore.
We were talking about this a little bit as we were just sort of warming up, which was that when you were sort of proposing focus groups to sort of say, how does this question strike you, that there was a real, the veterans told you there was a way that they needed to be talked to. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. When I go out and say, can you evaluate the efficacy of this evaluation system, somebody goes, that we actually made some surveys that sounded a little bit like that, and we weren't getting good responses. So we went to the vets and we said, okay, nobody's answering this. Why? And they said, what in the world are you trying to say? And we said, do you like the questionnaire? And they said, then why didn't you say that? So we can go to the vets and they can say, what this, are you okay? If I go to, academics, they want a little bit different. So actually, we can collect a common set of data that we can actually do outcomes on for multiple groups, skinned to whether they're from the South, whether they're from the North, skinned to whether they're male or they're female, skinned to whether they have this diagnosis or this diagnosis. We can change the rapidity of how often it's given if they have short-term memory loss so that we can average the results. We can do some amazing data collection things here that have never been possible. And we have a nice little thing built into LifeWire that allows any question to be compared to its previous answer for that client. So if you ask me what my stress level is, and I say it's a 3, and I give you 3 of those answers, now I have a mean, now I have a normal. And so if I then come back with a 1, I realize that's out of the system can automatically identify that that is an out-of-range response. Something's going on. And if that happens in enough of them, we have statistical algorithms in there that says, don't know whether the question was, do you like Neapolitan ice cream, or whether this was a trigger for suicide. The system can sort those out and automatically say, that's a good answer, that's a normal answer, this is an out-of-range answer.
So we're going to take just a pause here because we're getting a bunch of questions, and we only have 7 minutes left, and we're actually getting ready for wrap-up.
I've been trying to respond as fast as I could.
I see.
He's doing a good job, I'm telling you.
So, I mean, I want to be very clear. These folks are tweeting, they're doing video, we're doing all the sort of verbal. I mean, this is a really high level of engagement. But Howard and Bill, can you please tell us, how can they reach you after SPSM chat is over? And where should they, a lot of folks want to know where the studies are, the data is, because they want to go look at this, or they want to know how they can purchase this, or how someone could buy or use your system, and who is allowed to. How can everyone get a hold of you and keep talking?
Howard is to email us. Is the fastest. Our website. The website is www.lifewiregroup.com. And to email certainly Bill or myself, H. Rosen lifewiregroup.com. And Bill is bharms@lifewiregroup.com. We'll post it on the Twitter feed. And that's the fastest and easiest way of getting hold of us. In terms of where it's being used, we're in the VA. It's on a facility-by-facility basis for the moment. We're having discussions with head office, but they don't move too quickly, as we all know. And in terms of the studies, we're very happy to provide some of the studies. Some are published, some are still internal, but we're allowed to share them. Like some of the stats I gave you is from James Lovell with work we're doing at the James Lovell facility in North Chicago.
And some of that's like, there are news links to that, and people can, yes, and some of that's in our blog, so you can sort of see some of the initial reports of that. Please do get in touch with these folks. We have time. Yeah, the bowl of interesting question says it has one more.
Uh-oh.
Yay.
I don't like when I think big.
So the bowl of interesting question says, bare feet, flip-flops, or sneakers? Bum, bum, bum.
Who's that for? Bart's jumping in.
Any of the panel and any of our SPSM chatters, bare feet, flip-flops, or sneakers?
I'm a sneaker kind of guy.
You're a sneaker kind of guy? Are they white sneakers?
No, not white sneakers.
Not white sneakers, because I hear that's kind of cool again.
Well, I'm just outside.
Well, then we know it's not white sneakers.
I'll go as far as having Keens, if you want to be opened up, but that's as far as I'll go.
Oh, boundary. How about you, Bill?
I think that I have to be a sneaker kind of guy so that I don't trip over the things on my boat and hurt my toes.
Okay, fair enough. Tony Wood.
Flip-flops, laziness.
Bart Andrews.
So I'm just gonna disclose a little vulnerable moment. I've got really bad plantar fasciitis, and so I've gotta have tennis shoes with inserts, or basically I'm hobbled. Apparently my progenitors died out in their 30s because they couldn't walk anymore. So I'm trying to make it past 40, 50, whatever it is.
And I barefoot all my days, just supernaturally high arches and barefoot. Like if I could, there was a year in college where I don't think I wore shoes anywhere because, hippie. But, nails done, so, groomed feet. I'm no hobbit foot.
Okay.
That's sort of my boundary. Important. So we're getting to the last couple of minutes, and this is the part where we invite our panel to talk about final thoughts in this discussion. And we also want all of you folks at SPSM. I keep getting distracted from what's happening on the YouTube here, just because the feed is so really interesting. But for our panel, what do you think your final thoughts are from this discussion?
Well, this has been a great experience. This has been actually a phenomenal way of having a discussion and again, working with you all and also having the Twitter feed at the same time, a little overwhelming for my aging mind, but it's very cool in terms of how it's working. The key thing is really just about us and about technology. We're not about technology. We use technology, but the key thing is it's about interaction. It's about behavior management. It's the respect of the individual and allow them to talk about the needs and then let the technology follow it. The technology should be invisible, fundamentally. That's our objective.
That's a tweet. Howard Rosen, the technology should be invisible, fundamentally. It's about relationship.
And here's my final thought. We're getting some research from one of the defense agencies right now on using LifeWire, and what we've found is when somebody is using email as a communication, which is through LifeWire, the whole ecosystem from the time we send something out till we get it back can be as long as 50 hours. When we send text out, from the time we first contact them until we have the full survey back and responded is a maximum of 90 minutes. So it's a huge difference when we're trying to communicate with an interactive personnel who are in crisis. Text answers right away, and we had a 96% penetration rate of people responding that they would use text and that it was okay. So huge number, huge outcomes. Small numbers right now. We'll give you updates as we get them.
Yeah, because email for the same interaction ecosystem was 50 hours.
So 50 hours or 90 minutes?
Yeah.
50. Not 5. 50.
50.
50.
Oh, 2 days. Gracious.
The other thing that's really key is no app, no software, nothing loaded. It all is a website that you log into. Nobody has to download anything. Nobody has to learn anything because it doesn't take long to teach somebody how to answer a text message.
Yeah.
And for system integration for our clients, it's also cloud-based, so it doesn't have to actually be inside their system if they don't want it to be. And we satisfy all the DoD, VA, security, and privacy issues.
So here's Go ahead. Sorry.
Which allows them for integration purposes. Literally, it's if you want to use it, well, let's get going in an hour, and you can be up and running.
So my final thought on this is, and then we'll switch to Tony and Bart just as we close out, which is, it really is possible. If cross-collaboration between multiple disciplines, there really are, in the last few years, suddenly possibilities that actually solve problems, that work, that are cost-effective, that are better designed. It really can be done. And I have sat in so many meetings where people, they internalize the helplessness of the folks with the emotional despair and quit innovating and quit designing. But the truth is there are technology and design options that really can solve these problems. It's possible. I think that's my final thought. It's possible.
Absolutely.
So for Bart and Mr. Wood.
So I think one of the things, what they're doing is the future. I think what we've seen on SPSM this evening is what we're going to see more of, because what they're finding a way to do and what they're doing is so special. One, it's egalitarian, right? One of the things that this sort of engagement does is it reduces the power differential between the provider and the person receiving services. It puts us on more equal footing, and you do that by the level of contact and the collaboration and getting input. That's gonna be success. It's also about getting people where they live. We're reaching out to them. We're going into their space. Being invited into their space is probably a better way to put it. And those are the sort of things that are going to change the world. Again, I said this last week. We need to quit saying what's wrong with folks and instead say what's wrong with how we're doing it. What's wrong with the world? What can we change that will better meet people's needs? And that's what Howard and Bill are doing. What can we change? Not what can we have people do, but what can we change to better meet their needs? And that's magical. And thank you both. It was super cool.
Thank you. A lot of fun.
Oh, and we're hitting the hour. Any final words from you, Mr. Wood?
Let's do the sign off. So how can we get a hold of everybody and see their blogs and stuff? So let's go.
Okay, so everybody. Okay, so I'm at Doc Foreman. Come to our chat at Sunday nights, #SPSM. You can also find blogs that sort of let you know about our topics at spsm.com. You can find us spsmchat.com. And you can, of course, follow us on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter. You can find at Bart Andrews on Twitter. We, of course, have wonderful contact information for Howard Rosen at LifeWire Connect. And then for Dr. Harms, it's at WD Harms. Please do go to their website. Please do email them. Please do contact them. Let's keep the innovation going. How about that, Mr. Wood?
Bart Andrews, what's your web address for your agency? I forget. It's
BHRworldwide.com is the for-profit and the national business. BHR STL is the local.
Cool.
Thank you for being with us tonight.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.